Alright, so let's talk Toriko because this chapter is very simple and I'm not going to spend too much time on Toriko like usual because really there's not a ton to say here, at least for me. I'm not going to really talk about the future events here because I think it's pretty obvious what's going to happen next. So, whatever. So Komatsu's up, we know. Uh, Everybody is greeting each other. I mean, that takes up like 4 pages. They're just like, Toriko, Toriko's on, Komatsu-kun, the whole Kuzo, Zebra-san, the whole thing. And, he thinks they're crying, but it's really, the Sandorikos. And an interesting point is the fact that the Sandoriko is an ingredient that can be eaten to stop the pollen from affecting them. I found that very interesting. It makes sense on some level. Because you would think they'd be immune to it, right? Their own pollen. So if you eat them, there's something in there that makes them immune to it, at least temporarily. So the reason Komatsu was able to survive was thanks to Mappy and this charm, which he must have anticipated that something like this, that his condition would worsen to this point, thanks to the fact that he knew that like Bambino was ridiculous. So, whatever. I I really don't care. As you know, I wanted Komatsu to die. Whatever. So, um, then we get to probably, the second really interesting part about the chapter. But before that, we do find out that it was thanks to Pear that they were able to stay hydrated. But I kind of already knew that. It was kind of implied. And then the 100G mountain completely collapses completely for the third time, and we see this very small hut that ends up being, the tomb of the Monkey King's lover, which means that, of course, that dance that he was performing, that happy dance, was with an illusion. And, uh, it is confirmed that they completed the dance with Toriko biting the upper lip of Bambina, simulating a, a violent ass kiss, I guess. So, um, as I said before in a previous review, he's not going to be hostile to them anymore, and so it's even more so now that it's confirmed that they finished the dance. So, I mean that's the chapter, honestly. So, I mean, the next couple chapters, it's they're going to be eating pear. And I think I'm telling you, like I said last week, Bambina is going to be with him, and they're going to make friends with the Monkey King, which is pretty interesting in its own right, especially since Bambina is going to be eating his own nuts or drinking whatever you consider eating soup or drinking soup, whatever. So that's it. I thought it was a good chapter for the most part. Uh, Not despite Komatsu, it was a good chapter because of the reveals and some information and just some interesting things like the Sandoriko and you know stuff like that.
La 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 la. That's right, people. You didn't turn into the wrong video. This is Toriko, Chapter 318 Review. And not a lot happened. However, we had some big, huge realizations and discoveries. We spent a good bit of the chapter dealing with the fact, everyone's crying, saying, "Oh, Komatsu, Komatsu," and as Zebra pointed out, no, we are not crying. We're just affected by the Sungdun Riko's pollen. And we also found out that apparently Mappy had charm that he had given to Toriko had given to Yoon, or gave to Komatsu when he was preparing, when he put Yoon him inside Yun at the base of 100G Mountain. And then we showcased. They had to showcase the whatchamacallits. What was it? Oh yeah, it showcased it. Komatsu showed it how it broke, and apparently it broke in place of Komatsu's life. But however, at that point, remember when you heard a life snapping, that was the breaking of the charm. If she didn't have the charm, Komatsu would have died then. However, he was then saved long enough for Toriko again to get to him to, give him pair so they can heal him. And then after that, after Zebra, of course, points out the fact about the Sundrikos, Kwanzaa's like, oh yeah, by the way, oh, those plants, they're ingredients. Most likely, if you eat them, you'll probably stop, crying and running nosy. And they're like, wait, what? And then next thing you know, you see them eating them. Like, oh my god, Komatsu was right. We're no longer, crying our eyes out because of the Sundriko's pollen. Before, if it wasn't for a pair, we would have died and wouldn't have been able to know the secret, to learn the secret that nobody would have known because they're too afraid of the Sundrikos. And in fact, this ingredient, they actually taste really good. And of course, they have a good laugh. And then we have the fact that we learn the huge reveal was, after that when the 100G Mountain finally fully collapsed, and we had the sudden discovery of a house at the center of it. And somehow Coco was able to use his powers to see into the house, and it because they were being drawn there by intense, and I mean intense, gravity. And somehow this intense gravity, we found out that it was Monkey King was inside this house, and that he was visiting, and inside the house there was a casket. And it has been officially confirmed that his lover was not only that his lover was dead, but the huge realization or discovery was the fact that upon hitting, or should I say not hitting, but upon the creation of, he laid his lover to rest in the house with such great intense love that it caused the casket and the house itself to become a intense point of gravity, and that over time ingredients were like just being drawn to it and smushing together, and eventually it created a 100G Mountain. And if that wasn't enough, it was Coco was able to put two and two together and finally officially confirm that not only was that the final move was a kiss, but that that it was 100% confirmed that they have the greatest food luck whatsoever. I mean, come on, how else can you explain the fact that Bambina at the end tried to kiss them, but it seemed like he was trying to eat them, and then they try to beat the hell out of him, and then Toriko just so happens to try and say, like, you know what, if you're gonna eat me, if you're gonna try and eat us, then we're gonna eat you, and I'm gonna take a bite out of you first. If you're gonna take a bite out of us, I'm gonna take a bite out of you first. And that Bambina just somehow, some way interpret that as a kiss. And bada bing, bada boom, that they finally figure out how Pear felt. And now, with this sudden realization over with and this discoveries, there's a even higher chance, because I thought this week we were gonna get the official pear tasting. However, next week's chapter should be the official pear tasting, which means we are nearly done this arc. This arc is nearly over, and I'm really intrigued to see what Bambina does next, because is he gonna be like Heracles was, and is he gonna be have respect for Toriko and the other heavenly kings, and like so it's definitely going to be interesting, and it's also going to be interesting to see what type of camping monster they're going to be utilizing next to get to the next island, because even though Union is apparently a camping monster, he isn't going to be able to transport them to the next area. And as we all know, since they're gonna, then the next chapter they should be doing the official tasting of pear. They should also find out what effect it has on them, such as what it'll do for their body physically in terms of what added healing or stamina type abilities, because air had its things that it did to the body to improve it. But also, what in terms of the gourmet monsters are they going to gain? Are they going to gain a leg, another arm, the torso, or the head? Like what? So it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens next, because the tasting, this arc's almost over, thankfully. And I say thankfully because it's gone on, its weirdness, I should say. It's because of the fact that the arc has been so insanely weird and like sexual that it just makes it seem like it's going on longer than it was. But this arc has been amazing so far, and it'll be, let's see if there's going to be another twist to the ending. Not like, oh, let's taste this ingredient, enjoy it, be happy, see the results to our physical bodies as a result, and then pack up and move on to the next area. I hope that's the case, because we don't really need another stinking plot ending point, unless. But then again, there has to be somebody has to show up. I mean, who's gonna take Pear to um to to our boy at the Boshokukai? So it's that is they're gonna be sitting there eating pear, and it's freaking Tengu Brunchy just gonna show up and say, yeah, I'm back. Can we get air? Can I now? And Toriko's gonna be like, here, take this pear to him. And I'm like, what? I just got back, bitch. It's definitely gonna be interesting to see what happens next. This chapter was I thought it was a great chapter. It probably would have been no, okay. It wasn't okay. It was a good chapter. It wasn't a great chapter. It would have been great if it wasn't for the fact that they spent so much time focusing on the crying parts and the undecipherable babbling of them trying to communicate to each other while they're crying. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and stay tuned for next week. Sorry, join us for next week's chapter review. Bye, y'all.